Hi.
Hi, Josie. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Fantastic. Lovely to be here.
Thanks for joining us in our little queer comic shop in Baltimore so we can talk about your awesome queer graphic novel.
Yay. So I'm from, I grew up in Maryland in like Rockville and Bethesda. So I'm like, Baltimore, done.
Awesome. Well, we're so glad to have you at least virtually back in Maryland and maybe in person someday in the future.
That would be great. Just send me some Old Bay seasoning and I'll be there. Yeah.
It was some Natty Bows.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
They've gotten worse. They're real bad. Yeah.
Yeah, anytime. We have a crab place across the street, so clearly we can
Perfect.
handle Liberty. Um, well, to start, we'd love to have you share a little bit more about yourself and your journey into comics.
Yeah. So I was a extremely nerdy kid. I was like absolutely the type of kid who watched cartoons way longer than I think probably most kids did, and read comic books way longer than most kids did. And I was always like a big fan. Like my two loves were like I liked Western superhero comics a lot, but I was also always really drawn to like manga and like Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor, like a lot of comics that always had like a lot of queer characters or queer like coding or queer identities. Revolutionary Girl Utena. So I think I just love the format altogether, and I think I was like finding myself in a lot of these stories, especially again the sort of Japanese ones. I went to school actually for like TV writing and started working in animation, working on sort of like various things, including She-Ra, Princesses of Power. I was the head writer. And kind of from there, DC had contacted me and I was asking me to like sort of pitch them ideas. And I started gravitating towards, writing comic books for DC. But the whole time, I've done a lot of IP, I've done a lot of things that are owned by other people, but I was like, I want to do something that's just for myself. And that sort of turned into over the course of 2020, actually, I Heart Skull Crusher. It was like an idea I had a while ago. And then again, during the pandemic, there was a very big strain of like, this is sort of weird. Like the world is on fire, but I still have to go to work. And that vibe kind of turned into what I Heart Skull Crusher became. And I was very lucky that Boom was very interested. And now we've got the first trade paperback come out of the first 5 issues. We're on the second 5 issues. It's an ongoing now, and it has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever written.
Can I piggyback off that? Because that was going to be my main question for you. I absolutely fucking love this. This was incredible and such a fun ride. What we were talking earlier, and we said this is kind of like a millennial's dream. It seems like it pulls from so many different to me, it felt like it was Borderlands meets Mad Max meets
Mhm.
Pokemon meets hockey. It was just pure beautiful chaos, and I was just curious on what really were you trying to pull from to create this?
I mean,
What
you
sparked all of these ideas?
you touched on like a lot of them. Like it truly is a millennial dream because also Alessio Zono, who I've been working with, is also sort of around our age, and he's the artist. And as soon as I like sort of sent him the pitch, he was just like, "Oh my god, like let me talk to you about Fully Cooley and Studio Trigger and like Cowboy Bebop." Like we just instantly were like, "Here's all the things every millennial grew up with. Let's pull from all of these." Um, but yeah, like it's influenced by all of that. Like it's very Mad Max, obviously, with the apocalypse, but also very like like Slam Dunk and Prince of Tennis. Like it's also very there's like bits where in the first volume you see when Trini's talking about Skull Crusher and she's got roses behind her. We were like pulled from like a specific like Princess Tutu and Sailor Moon panel. So yeah, it is built upon all of the millennial like geek interests that I had. But yeah, it's also like sort of the other parts of it. Or like I said, it was like I started thinking about it in 2020 of just being like, what would the apocalypse look like? Like this is the apocalypse, but like it's boring, like it's mundane. Like what is this world where like the bad week happened and like everything that you've ever heard about it is insane? They're like, oh yeah, the dogs all died, the air turned green. Like it's just like every apocalypse that's ever happened. But then they're like, but like whatever, we're playing this bloody game. It's fine. It's mundane. And I think the other very big part of this that was also like a very big part of like both my childhood and sort of like, it took me a while to come out of the closet, but this was a very big like sort of like start of my queer awakening as a kid was again as a millennial. I remember watching the World Cup where like the the women's soccer team won, and Brandy Chastain like runs on the field and rips her shirt off and you see her abs and she's like screaming to the heavens of like I've won. And it was just so funny in hindsight because it's like that was like on the front of every newspaper. And so like for the full year, like every wall of my room had that picture from different angles of like, here she is shirtless, here's her abs, here's her screaming, like here's, and like my parents were just like, God, I guess Josie really likes soccer. So it was like it took a while to be like it's there's a reason that maybe a teen girl has 12 pictures of a shirtless hot athlete woman in her room everywhere she turns. So yeah, so that was definitely Skull Crusher is a little bit of like I'm Trini. That's my Chastain. That's my world's women's World Cup. Yeah.
I love it.
Definitely had a conversation about how smoking hot Skull Crusher was.
Oh my God. That was another reason Alessio got the job was like because I had come and I had pitched them this idea and we're like, okay, we need to find like somebody to come with and like kind of put this together. And like we had a couple of artists who were like interested. And then like Alessio sent me that Skull Crusher design and there's no notes. Like that is the first drawing he ever did is what is in the comic. And we're like yes, he gets it. Is this giant muscle mommy coming in with a hammer. He instantly understood where it was coming from. I was like, this is it. This is the one.
Really reminded me of Junker Queen from like Overwatch.
Yes.
Yeah, and we all started the night by sharing our first celebrity crush, and I feel like maybe you also shared yours.
100%.
Can you share any more about some of the inspiration behind the particular characters in the book?
Yeah. So, again, like I was like when I was coming up with this idea, I was like, okay, it's a post-apocalyptic like sports anime. Like that's basically the idea of it, the sports manga. So like for Trini, it was like a little bit of myself, but and then a little bit sort of like so many of these like coming of age stories, especially again like sort of in the like Japanese manga space that I like really influenced me growing up. Like the main character is so plucky and so determined and so like driven by dreams. And I thought it was like again, it was like at my very first thought was like it's so funny that like she's like such got such stars in her eyes and she's like I'm so this is my dream and I'm gonna make it happen and I love this so much and it is a game where we murder each other. Like it's just like big starry eyes about a literal blood sport felt really funny to me. And then as I went into her, I was like, and also like this is kind of a story about like, can you keep your innocence? Like how, like what happens when you meet your idols and they're not really what you want them to be. So she became a lot deeper, but it definitely started with like being like, it would be so fun and funny to see this like wide-eyed innocent whose number one goal is to like join this murder sport. Sort of the twins sort of came out of like I loved like the idea of like there's always like in like Mad Max like crazy, it's like Star Wars too, crazy back characters who you're just like wait, who are these people? Like there's like like in the what is that second Matrix, you have those crazy like twins that are like albino and you're like wait, hold on, there's like a whole story here and they get killed off right away. So I was like I want something like that. I want these like characters who are like fascinating and weird and different. They're bandits. They kind of like are interchangeable. They kind of fuck with people. They're gender non-binary and they are just kind of here for the chaos and the chance to rob others, which I thought was just really fun. um And then yeah, with Dan, he was kind of like the foil to Trini, where it was like, okay, if Trini's like all wide-eyed innocence, Dan's like really driven, but like in a very like almost cynical way of like he's seen it all, he's done it all, he's a little egotist. And like it felt like a fun person to both bounce off Trini. And I'm bisexual. Like I really love the idea of having like sort of like love triangles with like men and women. Like it's not something I see a lot. And then yeah, Coach is very much like Haymitch from like the Hunger Games series, just like a real like or like the coach from Bad News Bears, just like the like most like down on his luck drunk man who has been conned into like kidnapped into doing this and against his will is starting to like the team. And then David is a bear.
Just a bear.
Just a bear. Oh well, maybe he's a mutant bear man. Kosha seems really certain.
Was there a character that you found was the most fun to write, or whose voice you heard the loudest when you were writing?
I mean, it's so funny because it's like it's not quite voice isn't right, and like it's gonna sound like a joke, but like David, the bear goalie became like a standout. Like it was like a funny joke, and then like we're going through this, and we're just like, yeah, like him. He like takes on a life of his own. Like especially like we've got the trade paperback you can read, but in the second arc, like you see some stuff, and there's kind of a running gag in like a lot of the issues that like we've already established and we're going to see more of that. Like each new team David has joined, he's eaten. And so there's just like an in memorial for each one of these teams as like they see like David's like jaws closing in. And so yeah, David became like a standout, like the easiest one to write because it was just like, man, all right, here's David's POV. He wants to eat them. But I will say, I think the thing that like became more and more fun was in that first arc, Trini and Dan's relationship kind of really took off and like took it a new dimension of like they understand each other. Like they'd like much more so than like I even thought of when I first sort of like started plotting this out. And I'll say in the second one, seeing more and more of Skull Crusher's backstory has been really fun and like been pulling out more and more bits of like what makes her tick, what makes her her in a way that like is a little like there's like I think you'll have more sympathy for her at the end of this arc than you did at the end of the first arc.
But also, this is great because it feels like it's so perfectly edited. There's not a single like piece of dead space, and I feel like that's so seldom in even like modern day comics where there's like a little bit more downtime sometimes. But everything here is it's so dynamic. It keeps moving, which is great. I couldn't stop reading it. I just had to keep going. So it was really great, and I don't know how you pull that off, but there's like not a single second where it's like this isn't needed or this is a waste. It's just like all the way through.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, when I first started, like I did think like maybe it would be a little bit like longer, more drawn out. Like there is like a version of this in my head when I first started. Like it really is like like a 20 issue like Prince of Tennis slam dunk like sort of like story where like you see one match take place over several issues. But like early on, like again, like our editors were like, no, let's like you have so many ideas, like speed run them, let's go through them. And I think doing that also meant that it became a lot more like character focused. It wasn't necessarily like each issue is going to be dominated by a match. It's like each issue is dominated by like Trini and her feelings and like what she's feeling or what she's learning about herself and the others around her. And I think a lot of it is just, especially between me and Alessio, we have so many ideas and so many thoughts of like the backstory of the world or like these characters. Like in that first arc, like a lot of the like there's like a montage essentially of people that she's fighting in this tournament, and like half of them were like Alessio emailing me at like he's in Italy, so like the emails are like 3 a.m. and he's just like, okay, I have an idea and they're all monks, but they have bombs instead of like the little like beads, and then they throw the bombs, and I'm like, great, they're in the montage. So it's like it's the opposite of decompressed storytelling. It's like incredibly compressed storytelling, but it's fun. I all of my writing like does a lot of like pretty big leaps of like tone. I like it's from She-Ra. It's My Adventures with Superman, which I was one of the head writers and the producer of. Like a lot of the things that I write kind of like jumps around in tone very fast, and it's one of my favorite things to do. So it felt right for this incredibly wild, incredibly like messed up apocalypse world that it's not drawn out. It's just goes at the speed of light.
You mentioned Prince of Tennis, but you said something like 20 issues. Is that how long you think this will go for? Do you think it'll be ongoing for longer?
I mean, it's ongoing right now, and I have a lot of story ideas. Like I would love this to just keep going. So it's like how much does Alessia want to draw with me? How much does Boom want to publish? But like I've gotten such a good response and reaction to this comic. Like I do like I write stuff for DC. I run, I'm like one of the showrunners for like various TV shows. But when I go to conventions, what I sell out is Skull Crusher. Like it's like, I meet people from all stripes of being like, I love She-Ra this, but it's Skull Crusher that I'm like, I don't have any more issues of. I'm so sorry. Or I don't have any more stickers. I'm so sorry. And I think it's really rewarding because this is a project that's fully just out of my brain and like out of Alessia's brain, but like it's very much like kind of like my baby in a way that like a lot of the other stuff I haven't worked on is. So it's really rewarding and exciting that it's hit such an audience and so many people. Like we just got nominated for a GLAAD award. Like it's truly taken off in a way that like I have a lot more stories to tell, and I hope that we get like the plan is to like tell them, is to keep going. So yeah, fingers crossed it all keeps going. But it's been a very rewarding, fun ride.
Lots more of this.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
You had said that the bear was the character that spoke to you the most. Were there any characters that were challenging to write, or like what was the character that gave you the most difficulty?
So there's some of it was, I think, some of the tyrants and like trying to find their voices, and a little bit more, and you're gonna see her a little bit more in arc 2, but like Queen Mob was like kind of started as an idea and was like kind of an enigma, and like I found a way into her, but like it was so funny because like the main group like really gelled, and like I really felt like I figured out like how they play off of against each other. And then I'm like, okay, each issue we've got like a new team, we've got a new tyrant. Like, what's the new tyrant surprise that's going to be sprung on them? So suddenly, in the middle of this match, the whole arena floods, or like this or that. So the sort of like the tyrants were the things that like took me a little bit longer to sort of like get my way into, to be like, okay, well, what seems fun and of this world, but also like is very distinct and different. So it's not a world where every single one of these like evil characters is like a Morton Joe, like, or like not every single one of them is Toe Cutter. Like they're not all the same guy or the same girl. So I think that the tyrants kind of and Queen Mob kind of threw me for a loop at first, and then sort of I found my way in. And especially this second arc that takes place sort of all in the bubble cities that the first 2 issues have come out already. There's like a lot more of like, that was when I started to get into their brains and be like, oh, this is the way the rich and powerful live, versus this first arc where we see how the scrappy and downtrodden and radioactive live.
I have a question kind of about process when you're doing the writing, and I think my question is more about before you found the right artist, like how much of the story, or kind of in what way do you write up the story? Is it like the way it shows up in the book at the end, or is it more like a kind of a framing, like almost like a screenplay?
Yeah, so the way I start, I get with every project I do, I kind of write a treatment for myself, kind of the way, what if it was like a TV show or a movie? I'm like, here's the main characters, here's the tone, here's sort of like the voice of this is where like this series could go. So for Skull Crusher, I kind of wrote up for myself like a treatment, like a couple page treatment of like, this is the tone, this is the vibe, this is why I want to do it. So by the time sort of like Boom reached out to me, I had like a very, very like 3-page treatment pitch, basically, of like, this is what I want to do. That was like very much like exactly the tone of what I wanted. Then when it comes to like actually writing it, it's so funny because writing for comics is different than TV. like it is a little bit, it can be a little bit looser because you've got this artist working with you, and like they'll have their own ideas of how to lay things out. So I think my first scripts especially like right before Alessio was like fully on, like kind of felt a little bit more like screenplays, where it was like very like detailed and like thought like every bit like very spelled out. But like once he sort of came on, I sort of loosened up, and there, like, there'd be section like, I think this is a double page spread. This is kind of my idea, but like, Alessio, what do you think? Or like, I think this is like this is the mood of this. Like this, I think maybe this is probably a splash page, and like the whole point of this is to see how much Trini loves Skull Crusher. And then like that would be what I hand over to Alessio. Like the dialogue is in there, but like the scene description is like, Alessio, what do you think? This is kind of the mood. And then he'd be like, I think we should play this way. Like, let's do the roses and stuff like that, and eye sparkle, or like, let's do like this part of this arc where we see like all of the, like they're getting poisoned. And so I have this idea that like, we play with colors a little bit, and we kind of bounce it back and forth. So it's pretty collaborative. But yeah, at the end of the day, like the scripts kind of, they look like screenplay scripts a little bit, but like where you'd have the scene description, like oftentimes I'll be like, here's like the idea of the scene, or here's like what they're doing, but like here's the emotion. So then Alessio doesn't have to do exactly that. He can do something that like looks better or kind of reads better. And that way he's like really putting his imprint on it, and I'm getting the benefit of his like amazing visual storytelling, because he's incredibly good at emotions. He's incredibly good at that tone switch as well, where he's like, I think this like coach should be like a chibi version of himself for this, and it's really funny. Like a lot of the visual gags are all Alessio being like, "Ooh, I think this would be a really funny idea," and then he adds it in, and it just elevates it.
Did you have the plot thought out first, or did you have the rules of Murder Ball thought out first?
Oh, I have plotted out first. Like the very first thing I did was like, because like I started this as kind of just like a writing exercise for myself before I pitched it. So the first thing I did was like being like, okay, what are the rules of Screaming Paintball? And then I wrote them down. And like in that, like I think second or third issue, like you have Trini explain it, and she just like goes off on a tangent, but like all the rules are there. Which is funny because there was like an issue like in that first arc that like Alessio was like, Josie, the points don't add up. And I was like, oh my God, you're right. We have to go back to the rules and like relook at the point system. So the rules and how you play the game and like different like strategies were like the first thing I thought of, because like it's fun. And then from there, I started like actually like by the time Alessio came out, I already had like sort of the plot of the first arc all figured out. Like I have plots for like a couple of other arcs figured out. But like it was, I knew what the beginning and ending, and I knew some points in the middle. But it was plotted out pretty thoroughly. But then with like a lot of room for being like, oh wait, we got to rearrange this because I completely forgot that once they're in the goalie square, that's 5 more points. So let's make sure that this is consistent with what I've set up in like issue 3.
What I'm hearing is that we should expect a one-shot of just the rule books.
I would love that. Of just like Trini's rule book would be like, it's like those old, like, what is it? Like Daria would do that. It's like Daria's yearbook, like, and they would like publish it. Yeah, I would love to do a Trini's rule book with like little doodles on the side, and all the characters have their own section. That would be so fun.
Right.
5,000 times.
Oh yeah, like half the book is just Mrs. Skull Crusher written on it with hearts. Yeah.
So we need to email that to you. I knew that I loved this story as soon as we met Trini's parents, which is very early. I know you said a lot of the visual gags were Alessio. What was that? Your idea? Was that his idea?
Yeah, that one was my idea. That one was like the very first thing. I was like, all right, here's like the intro into the world. And like, I just think it's very funny to be like, it's such like a heartfelt, like, Mom and Dad, what do you think? And then it's just like sun bleached skulls. Like they've been dead for a while. Like question mark of, are these actually her parents' skulls? Did she just grab some skulls? Like you'll learn a little bit more about Trini and her like backstory as we go on. But like, it was also like a, that was like one of the first things that while I was writing, like I like felt like I was like getting more out of like Trini as a character. Of like, it starts as a joke, and then by that first issue you have the end where she's like, I know you're not alive, but like, God, I wish you were. And I feel like that's like the encapsulation of the series in a nutshell of like it's jokes, jokes, jokes until you hit like that heart of being like, this is actually a really sad and lonely world. Like the apocalypse was bad. Like it's funny until it's tears. And then you're just questioning like, will Trini's like dreams come true? Will that buoyancy come back? Like she's like masked a lot, but like this is a hard world that is unforgiving. Will she like make it out with like her dreams intact, basically?
At the very least, I think we found it affirming that queer people exist in this world. So nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's especially like, this is something I'm writing for myself. Like, why would I erase myself from my own story? Like, I'm like, Trini's bisexual, like, Skull Crusher is gay. We've got the twins who are non binary. Like, this is a world where it's like, I want, gender fluidity is not up for discussion. Like, maybe there's like acid tornadoes spitting out mutants, but like, everybody is like, fine with like gay people existing. Like that's sort of, and that was a little bit like I've done similar things. Like She-Ra is another one where it's like this is a world which just everyone's gay, everyone's a gay character. So it was fun to write this and just be like, yeah, full on out. Like we've got gay characters, we've got queer characters. Like there's some trans characters coming down the road. Like it's just a world that is it belongs to me and Alessio, and it belongs to us in a way that I'm just like, why wouldn't I do this? Like it makes the story richer, it makes it funnier, it makes it more heartbreaking, it makes just it ups the ante for everything. And it's kind of a world that like I in some ways I wish existed. Like it's as a bisexual woman, I don't see very many stories about bisexual characters. And, there's a lot of like I think there's a lot more autobiographical stuff coming out. And I love that stuff, but like it's still hard to find original characters, or still hard to find things with like queer characters in them. And I was also very happy to be with Boom. They've done Lumberjanes, they've done like other queer media. Like there was never a point where I had to fight with anybody, like to be like, oh, we need to do this. Like they'd be like, oh, are the twins non-binary? I'm like, yep. They're like, okay, let's make sure that we're always using they. Then like everybody was on board, which was really lovely. So I was like, I didn't have to like fight any battles. I could just be like, here is my queer world where also everybody plays sports and they all have weapons. Like this is my queer Mad Max.
I love the unexpected bisexual rep as well. When it got like, towards the middle or so, I'm not sure, of this arc, and it's like, oh my gosh, like she's bi.
I love it. I wish there was more like I wish there's more bisexual rep, just both because of me, but also because I'm like, it's fun. Like it's fun to see someone falling in love with men and women and like everybody. Like it's like a cool thing. Like I think so. Like it was exciting for me to be like, great, she's bi. She's gonna have this sort of like she loves Skull Crusher, but also she's got feelings for Dan. And like this is a world that embraces all of that.
One thing we talk about a lot in this group is it's nice when the story isn't focused around the coming out arc of a queer character as well. So it's also really great to be dropped into this world with them where you're like, yep, they're queer and everybody's doing their thing and we're gonna like go on this adventure with them. And there's plenty of drama and chaos without also adding those pieces.
A group of disaster guys have shown up and they all want to play a sports game. So yeah. But yeah, no, it's about the game and the emotions, and it's just it's a world where we all happen to be queer in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, just to say the same. I love when it's like barely even like part of their identity as far as when they're introduced as a character. It's not like this is a person who is gay and like it's a major piece of a pillar of their characterization in the story. It's like, oh, that's just a side piece. Like, yeah, they're into both of these genders. That's not really the point. This other stuff is the point. That's just going to be going on the side. I love that.
Yeah. And I mean, like I love there's a lot of queer like coming of age stories or coming out stories that I love, but like for me, like I really it's exactly that. It's like I really like that this is just a piece of them. Like this sort of the same way it's like if this was a sports story, like somebody being straight wouldn't be like the centerpiece of it, of like, he has to come out as straight, you see, and tell everybody that actually has a crush on the girl. Like, you're just like, no. The point of this is like the madcap zaniness, and this is like the richness of like where they come from. This is like just part of who they are. Yeah.
Yeah. So you've worked in animation, like TV, and you've worked in comics. Do you have a preference, and like which executive team is worse to work for?
I mean, I love both. I really do like comics, and specifically like working on Skull Crusher, because it truly is my baby. Like, it's 100% like what I want to do. It's like you're not getting notes of like, oh, you need to incorporate this character, or like this is unbelievable. Like, it's very supportive of just like, okay, how do we make this story pop better? Like, what do we need to touch on to make this work? And so like it's very, as somebody who's worked in, I love animation, but as somebody who's worked on a lot of properties that like were created like 80 years ago, like 40 years ago, it's really nice to be able to be like, this is new, this is mine, and this is like exactly if I could just be paid to write all day long, this is exactly what I would make. So like I think I really like that. For for executive teams, I mean, it's so funny. I'm still friends with so many of the people I work with. Like, I still like, I found out that I was nominated for the GLAAD Award because Nate Stevenson and his wife Molly texted me. Like, it was in the middle of my workday, and they're like, "Oh my God, Josie, congratulations!" And I was like, like, I just had a baby too. They're like, "On the baby?" And they're like, "No, that too, but like, congratulations!" And like I have a shared text chain that lit up. They're like, "Oh my God, good job!" So like, I'm still friends with them. Like, the real answer is like the shows that were nightmares are the ones that often don't make it to screen because there's like complications and things like that. Like, all of the shows that I've worked on, like I'm still friends with a lot of the people, or like a lot of the showrunners. And it's just been very rewarding to like, what is it? I just even shows that I very briefly worked on. Like, I very briefly wrote for this show called Justice League Action that was back in the 2010s. And I just ran into like, the old showrunner from that. And he's like, "I got Skull Crusher. It's so funny." Like, it's a really supportive environment. And also say there's a lot of overlap in Los Angeles between animation and comics. Like, I do both. My pal Jeremy Adams does both. My pal Tim Sheridan, who also is nominated for the same GLAAD Award for his phenomenal Green Lantern series. Like, he was working on He-Man while I was working on She-Ra. Like, there's a lot of overlap and a lot of love for sort of all of these characters and things like that. But yeah, the too long didn't read version of this is I still am friends with like everybody I've worked with on like these shows that have come out, and I really do love working on Skull Crusher the best just because it's fully mine. Yeah.
I have another question. So, what would you tell kids who are like, this isn't a kid's book, this is for grown-ups, but my kids love She-Ra, which you worked on. What would you tell people who are reading your material and just like, it's like 2020 again. We're living in a world where it's burning, and like it was very timely. What would you tell people to take away from your stuff?
I mean, I think the thing to take away, because I'll like be like transparent. Like, my first week on She-Ra was the week of the 2016 election. So this is not my first go around of being like, well, the world is burning, can we make something gay? But like, I think I would tell people, I think it's one of the big messages that it's like in everything that I do, no matter what it is, from like Skull Crusher to like, Shazam, which I work on for DC, to She-Ra, to like, even like Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, of just like, even when everything is on fire, you can find a way to dream and hope. And that's that they win if they take your dreams away. They win if they take your hope away. There's always a way forward, even if it's just getting that found family together. If you get together your team and your new family, you get together your like princesses and they're the people who are going to support you. Like, I think it's like finding those who are going through the same struggles as you and banding together is how you get through tough times and awful times and times of political strife and times of apocalyptic change. It's finding that found family and sticking with them. And it's also, I think that is how we also enact change, is like you find those people that you are, you're that family you see eye to eye with, and then you go, you know what, let's push for our dreams. We're not going to stop hoping. We're not going to stop pushing for a better tomorrow. We're not going to like let them take the things we've worked so hard for away. Let's push this. Let's make, in my case, let's make gay media. Let's like now not get silenced by, mainstream, like, political wins or mainstream critics or any of that stuff. But like, for various people, and we saw it like 2020 and everything, it's like a lot of people, like activist movements took off, like protest movements take off. Like I think the worst thing that can happen in sort of times like this is losing that hope that things can be different and losing that drive to make your hopes come true. And I think if there's anything to take away from my work, it's that always hope and always dream, because together you can make those dreams happen. It's hard as hell, and you have to fight, but you can make it happen.
Thank you. Yeah, that was a good fucking answer.
Yeah, Josie Campbell for president.
That was like America Ferrera in the Barbie movie level.
I think I'm about to be the person who asks a self-serving question after the clap. Do you have any interest in tabletop role-playing games? Because I write queer found family tabletop role-playing games, and I know how to write a game for this, and I can already envision in my head. I just tagged you on Blue Sky.
I play Dungeons and Dragons. So I've been part of a D&D group that's been going since like 2014. So I love that. Yeah. That was actually the She-Ra Dungeons and Dragons episode is the one that I wrote, because me and Nate were very shortly playing together for like a year and a half or so in like a campaign, and we are just like, oh, we gotta do a D&D episode. So that's great. I don't know if you want to make a skull character. I'd love that.
Yeah.
That's definitely would have to be a book club.
Yeah.
With some crabs and bow.
Yeah.
Not a question, but just a comment related to what we just talked about. Like, it was very like wonderful and cathartic for me to read this at this particular moment in time. Like, especially like I work for the federal government. It's really bad here, and so to be like, well, the world's ending here, but gay people are all right, was really, really wonderful for me to read at this particular moment in time. So thank you.
You're welcome. No, it's like I said, like it's started it in 2020 when like the world was ending in its own way. So yeah, no, that was important to me, is like, but like we're still here, and we're still here, and we're still queer. Like it's still, we're still dominating this world. So yeah. It's been like they're definitely like events have been coloring a little bit more. Like the second arc is a little darker just because I was writing it after the election. But like it's, yeah, like I said, it's really important to me that it's like, like these characters aren't oppressed. Like I don't, that's like, I see this in my world. I don't need this in my fiction. What I need in my fiction is something that makes me hope and makes me enjoy reading. So yeah, that's what I want. Yeah.
Well, clearly we have an RPG game to look forward to, but are there
Great.
any other projects that we should keep an eye out for?
So there are some other things. Unfortunately, like they're not announced yet, but like there will be some other things coming from me in the next couple of years. So like stay tuned. Like, yeah, I wish I could announce things, but yes, I've got some other things in the sort of media space that will be hopefully announced in another year or so. So just stay tuned to Josie. And then like the big thing is obviously like, yeah, Skull Crusher is an ongoing. So like we're working on the like last issues of this arc. It's like another 5-issue one. It's an ongoing, so there's going to be more stories coming down the pipeline, and we're going to do like another trade paperback for like this second arc in the Bubble Cities. So keep buying the issues, buy the trade that's out for the first arc and the second arc, and get ready for more Skull Crusher.
Have you gotten to read any comics or graphic
Ooh, that's a good one. I've slowed down my reading just a tad. It's so funny because at this point of my career, like I know a lot of the people who write things, and like it becomes like that, like, oh shit, like we should get lunch sometime. It's like, oh God, I need to read your Green Lantern. I'm so sorry. I haven't like but I was gonna say, was that I love, and I know him, Pornsax, Pinochet's, God, what's his most recent Boom book, which is basically like Homeward Bound in Space, is so good. I just reread The Good Asian, which he wrote too, and it's a phenomenal book. He's doing like a new project, I think with Dark Horse, that's like a lot of like underserved, like people of color and underserved communities writing sort of like pulp fiction stories in the comic space, which is incredible. I've been reading, there's like a lot of like comfort things. Like I've been rereading Sailor Moon, honestly, and rewatching, especially like the Sailor Stars, the very end, because I love Seiya so much. Like Seiya's definitely, there's like a little DNA of Seiya in Skull Crusher for sure. But yeah, I think it's been like a lot of indie stuff actually, which I think a lot of the independent comics and graphic novels is like really like have been taking off, and there's like a real lot of really cool ideas, and I think some of the coolest stuff that's being done in comics right now is in the indie space and is in with independent writers. And it's really like inspiring and recharging in a way that like some of the others, like I love, I love my Marvel, I love my DC, but like I really love getting to see creators like unbound by strictures of like you have to stick with this character, or like you have to do this thing, and just be in their brains and be like, this is what they would do on a deserted island with nobody to entertain but themselves. So yeah, so I'd say a lot of the indie books from Boom, a lot of the indie, like I'm still picking up Saga, like a lot of the books from Image are fantastic and well worth reading.
Nice. Yeah, we also love Man's Best.
Yes,
And
housing.
yeah, the New Horizon stuff.
Yes.
From Warzag is also awesome. The whole slew of, I know you did the first one, Manchurian, but yeah, the whole slew of them are super cool.
Yeah.
We're also big fans of Boom. Does anybody else have any questions for Josie?
Yeah, I can keep going. So again, this was like a 10 out of 10 for me, but with this all finished and completed, at least the first arc, is there anything you would change or tweak a little bit to maybe, I don't know, fit better to your ideas, or something that an editor changed that you didn't want it to change?
I mean, luckily, like we were all on the same page. The editor for the first, like I did get to switch editors for the second half, just because my editor who I was working with, Daphne Plebin, ended up going to Viz Media afterwards. Like there really wasn't changes that like there was nothing here that like they were like, you changed this, and I'm like, no, I hate this, and like you have to do it or we won't publish this. Like there was no holding the book hostage. Like every change or everything that happened like felt like it was like the story evolving pretty naturally. Like I feel like the only thing that I wish is like, I kind of wish that like, because I always knew I had 5 issues. It was like towards the end when they're like, oh, it's an ongoing now. Like I do kind of wish like they like, I had 10 issues, like I had more, just to like, like it goes so fast. I would love to have had some individual issues that like are more like into the psychology of one character, rather than sort of like having to go so fast through the world. But like other than that, like there was nothing. Every single conversation with everybody on the creative team, the editorial team, was like, we love this book, we love what you're doing. And like if there was a note, it was like in service of like making it better, being like, oh, like we kind of like have a similar idea on this page to this page of like how they're like doing this match, like maybe we change it up. So like the editorial has been really, really fantastic. And like I've definitely like had projects where like I've had to fight executives and editors, especially like for queer characters. I'm like, nope. And my first thing when that came to this Boom, it's like Skull Crusher has to be a woman, like this has to be gay, or I'm not going to do it. And they're like, yeah, it's totally fine. We're down. Let's do it. So there wasn't any point where I was like, oh God, I can't believe I have to do this note. It was always just like, oh great, Daphne's going to spot something that like I didn't notice and it's going to make it better. Or like, Elizabeth, who's now my editor, is going to spot something that I didn't notice and it's going to make it better,
Yeah, I was gonna have a follow up with like if you had a favorite publisher that you've worked with, like besides that, like Boom or DC, like because I know DC is very kind of I don't know locked down, I guess you could say, with what they allow because everything is obviously I don't know kept close to the heart, but it seems like Boom gives you the freedom to just do what you want, which is good.
Yeah, no, Boom has been really good to me and like I've really enjoyed working there. Like I know I've had some other friends work. There's like a couple of like I think also a lot of like the very small presses are kind of fun because it's like they're doing anthologies, like they're reaching out and doing stuff. Like I think what is it? It might be Dark Horse. It's like whoever does the like Creep Show anthology, like their stuff is fantastic and like also so fun and like I think the other thing that's nice is there's been a lot more launching of like sort of individual, like sort of indie groups and indie publishers trying to take things off. Like Distillery just got off the ground, obviously. Like you've got a lot more people sort of like trying to do new things. So I do like working for DC and writing books, but like I really do. I think a lot of the indie publishers, especially the small ones where they're like very curating an audience, like it feels more like a partnership than it is like okay, work for hire. Write this character and we'll send you the check. It feels a lot more like, oh, you're building something together, or like we know that the audience for this is small, but they are passionate. Let's do it. So yeah, Boom's been great. 1 second's been good. Like there's a lot of really great people in like all of these indie groups. Yeah.
Can I ask my last?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just occupying everyone's time. My favorite thing to ask anyone that's worked for like DC or Marvel is if you could remove any character from continuity, who would it be?
Ooh, any character from continuity. Interesting. Man, okay. I'm trying to think like what character would I remove from continuity? I feel like the safe answer would be some like Green Lantern that nobody like remembers, but like I've been to enough conventions where it's like if any character I say, there's gonna be somebody who's like, I cannot believe she hates Gnort, the Green Lantern of my heart. How dare she take him out? I'm trying to think. I like I'm gonna as actually sort of a Marvel character, like I really liked that Sentry story when it was like the Sentry when it was like that individual like sort of mini series. I don't love that he gets to just be part of the Marvel universe now because like the whole point of that story was like sort of a deconstruction of the idea of superhero and like addiction. It's like there are little Hour Man nods in there, and it felt like it worked so well as like a Marvel Elseworlds essentially. So like I was like once he started showing up in the regular like 616 Marvel universe, I was like, oh, that kind of defeats the purpose of that whole miniseries. So I think that would be the one that I would say. I kind of think that they've maybe moved on from him. Like it's been a long time, but like that was the one that I was like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. Like I like it when like the Elseworld stories or like the out of continuity stories kind of stay out of continuity. Like I love the absolute like Wonder Woman that they're doing and the absolute comics that they're doing. It's like and a lot of the Ultimate stuff. But like I think like part of the joy of it is that you don't have to like worry about it like meshing with the rest of the comics universe. Like part of that joy is like this is the one-off. This is the like story where the universe is different and you do not have to chart where all these characters are or how the continuity works. We're starting fresh. So like I love it. Like I love the stuff that like gets to live in its own universe. Like it's always a little disappointing when it's like woven into the greater shared universe because I'm like, well, that takes some of the shine away,
I love that answer. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's the best answer we've
Yeah,
gotten.
100%. Everyone cops out. They're like, oh, I don't know. I love everyone.
We're always like, punchline is the easiest.
Yeah, that's the easiest one.
low-hanging
It's such a
fruit.
shitty fucking character.
That's a big punchline.
No, we're like
We're
very
s-
opinionated. You're not gonna offend us. One of our other clubs.
Yeah. This is when I do my caveat of, but of course I love every single Marvel character and DC character, and I would love for them to continue to hire me to write their stories. Like, yeah.
I was gonna say one of our other clubs is like
like focused on Marvel and DC and like some of the indie superheroes, and we did a PowerPoint night, and one of the PowerPoints was why Peter Parker must die, and another one was why Jason Todd is the worst Robin. So like you're not gonna.
Amazing. I love it. That's great.
Next PowerPoint night, because Izzy's going to break down all of the romantic partners of Storm and which ones were the best and why she deserves better.
Oh, that's so much. Wait, this is like a fun behind the scenes thing. When I was working on My Adventures with Superman. My writer's assistant, who then wrote some scripts and is now a writer on season 3. Like we were just talking about like romance, and like he is like vibrating out of his seat, and we're like, what's your favorite sort of like romantic pairing? He's like, I have a PowerPoint, and like brought us a PowerPoint of Kirk Spock / fiction that is like an hour long, and like it is just like he has poured his heart and soul into it. He's like, let me talk about the beginnings of like, but it's like really good. Like we were like absolutely enthralled. Sari Cooper, I'm like absolutely like gonna embarrass him if he ever sees this recording. He's gonna be so upset and embarrassed. But it was like she was just like, we had like a day where we all went to like my house with all of the writers. We're like, okay, let's watch things or talk about things that inspire us. And he's like, I will bring the PowerPoint, and just walked us through. And he's like, and this is why actually Spock and Kirk are endgame. And by the end, we're like, yeah, you're right. You're right. You've convinced us all. This is what they always meant it to be.
That's amazing. Yes.
No, I can't unsee it.
You're meant to be. We're also deserve better. Certainly not that you have to, but do you have any questions for us, Josie?
Oh my God. Wow. I don't know. I've been doing like a lot of interviews and things like that, but nobody's ever asked me if I have questions for the book club who's like read the book. Like, I feel like it's self-serving. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, 100%.
Beautiful. Yeah. Who has been your favorite characters in this? I am curious. I never get to do this. Yeah.
David.
Oh yeah, Dave the Bear is the best.
David.
I really like the twins.
Yes.
They did it for me.
I love it. We had one of the covers was the twins, and Alessio drew them, and like that was like the one note, I guess, to go back to your question, that like editorial we're like, well, do we? Whereas editorial is like, we see way too much of their like inner thigh. Like Alessio, like this is like it like too sexy, and like, can you cover some more? And it was like so funny to watch him, like, because it's like, again, Italy, so it like take like an entire day, and then he'd come back and there'd be like the tiniest sliver more, and they're like, no, we have like a T for teen rating. Like we need to cover that inner thigh just a little bit more. So like we went through like 5 versions of like slowly inching out their like little like loincloth dresses until they're finally like, okay, great. We've got it. We're not getting legal notes anymore.
I definitely have a bit of a crush on Trini. She's so pretty.
Oh yeah. She can get it.
And I'm pessimistic, so I could use an optimist in my life.
Perfect.
Does anyone have any questions for anyone else?
No, but I do want to say that I do love the muscle mama of especially were the chapter pages covers. Is that what
Yes, the chapter pages were covers, and some of the art in the back is like sort of extra art that Alessio's done. I think we're gonna have some because we took a break in Arc 2 because I was on maternity leave for a good chunk of it. So the book is coming back in March, and I think we're gonna do some retail variant covers where like Alessio's kind of done like coffee AU versions of the characters, like going to school and like hanging out like as in like a regular universe. So I think some of the retailers are going to be getting some of those covers, so stay tuned. We're like, he's like doing them like right now, so we're like, hopefully we're going to be able to make that happen. But he's got like, he does fan art of the characters all the time, and he's like, and here's a little sketch, or like here's like Skull Crusher like getting coffee. So like I would love to like have like more of his like sketches and artwork like in one of these books at some point. Yeah.
Of each of the characters, probably just like, this is the character going through
BAU art is now so important to me.
I feel
The
like just
first D&D episode where the coffee shop AU is
Yeah.
the D&D game playing out from the Skull Crusher universe perspective.
right.
Yes.
Right.
Several layers of fan fiction down. Yeah.
Josie, thank you so much for writing this and also for being here, for joining us. We,
You're
as
welcome.
much as we, as much as we love the books, it always adds so much more of an appreciation when we get to talk to the creator and hear all the parts of yourself that you add to it. And yeah, this was definitely a favorite. Thank you so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you guys so much for inviting me. Yes.
Yeah, I love you.
Thank you. I love every single one of you too.
Me the most, please.
Thank you so much, Josie. Hopefully
Great.
we can get you out to Maryland soon.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. I'll let you know. Thank you guys.
Thank
All right.
you.
Bye.